What's up, everybody? It's James and Will. We're back at more Dead Stuff. Will's back with us. We're going to have a bunch of videos we're going to be doing and talking with you guys. We're really excited about. What's up, Will?
What's up, James? How you been, man?
Been good, been good. How about yourself?
Man, resting and relaxing, man. Had a long little stretch there and getting ready for another one. So I'm looking forward to pumping out some content, and getting back into the conversation.
That's right. That's right. And today we're talking about Terminus. It's one of my favorite arcs, I guess, if I had to go back and look at the entire Walking Dead story. And a big part of that is just the way it plays out. I think the trough scene is one of my favorite. Just, oh my God, to be in that situation and then Carol saving them, like it all plays out. So I just like the whole thing. And Terminus, of course, they showed us at the end how, like, Rick, I don't know if I got a frame of it, but Rick comes out and Glenn, they come back and they let this guy out of a container and he's all crazy and he runs at them. That's one of the guys that actually terrorized the Terminus people in the beginning and raped their women and stuff that turned them into cannibals. So we got, they had good intentions to start with Terminus. They had all those signs up and they did have good intentions, but the bad people came and locked them in a train car and raped their women and the mom and everybody. And so when they did get out, they captured those people and they kept one in that container the whole time, driving him crazy. But they started eating people that came to Terminus. So, at least we got that backstory. I like that we got the backstory, a little bit of how they became who they are and what drove them there. And you could understand them being traumatized to the point that they don't trust anybody, but to eat people, that's
Yeah, I don't think I would be able to eat anybody, man. I don't know. I mean, because where we're at in the timeline, where Terminus, that arc happens, it's not very long.
no,
Not
no,
long enough maybe to turn to cannibalism so fast,
right.
because
And it wasn't because they were out of food. I don't think it's just because people suck. We're gonna eat them, or like just
yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, it was kind of strange. I definitely think that's one of the story arcs that they could have, you know, broadened out a little bit, like maybe a few more episodes of them getting some more people or, like, just something more. I definitely think that it was a good arc, as far as, everything that happened in the Walking Dead. So,
It was a good one. A lot of different stuff happened. We got him. Rick is just coming off of biting the throat out of Joe the Claimer. Carl was almost raped. They almost all died. So that's what they're coming from. And that's why they come in this side door. And Gareth, he comes forth and's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's smart, whatever. And they even let them keep their weapons. So everything seems cool. And Gareth seems like a nice guy. He's like, yeah, yeah, cool, man. We're cool with you if you're cool with us, and so they play it cool and you think, and it's cool to see that you see where they're making the posters and the signs and the lady sitting back there at the radio desk doing that radio thing, calling people in like, come food, come hither food. We're going
yeah.
to eat you. So all of that happened. But of course, Rick, being the sheriff's deputy and just the good eye that he's got, recognized everything wrong with the situation and called their bluff. It's like,
Yeah. So, I mean, for Rick to have to go through all that so fast, like just the mental mind, that's a mind fuck. Like, you just ate a man's throat and now somebody's trying to eat you.
yeah, and it was one thing after the other. Really, if you want to keep stacking, they fought the governor The governor
Mhm.
destroyed the prison, the place he lived, and everything, and scattered everybody. So not everybody's there at until they get in the train car. They see everybody, but you got the governor thing, and what happened at the prison? Him and Carl at this moment think Judith is dead, that killed by the governor's people. So they think Judith's dead. Carol and a lot of them may be dead. They don't know. So all of this is on Rick, and then this shit happens. So it's just like, how much can a man take?
But, Rick is Rick's mind frame throughout the whole thing is just like, damn, one thing after another after another, and you know, at the part, where they had him at the trough and they're about to cut their throats and then, you know, Carol saves the day. Just
Man,
mm,
that's some stuff there. That whole trough thing, knowing that you're down the line and they're coming your way. I mean,
mm,
I've always, who knows what the hell I would do in the real situation? Probably nothing and die like a coward. But whether it's something like this or you've seen it in footage or photos from like even, World War II and places where they just line people up on the side of the road, and
mm,
they're going to machine gun them down and the people stand there. Maybe I would just stand there. But if I know I'm about to die, like I'm about to die, I would run at them. I would scream. I would yell. I would at least try to do something. I think.
yeah. I
Not,
guess
but they were
me
tied.
personally,
They were tied feet. They had things around their feet, hands, and their mouth. So it was hard for them to go anywhere.
well, I don't know if I would have trusted the whole Terminus thing from the jump anyway. I think I would have seen those posters and kept walking. Like,
Fuck that shit.
uh, yeah, because at this point, you can't trust nobody, which is sad to say, like, because people thrive with the community, So maybe people early on are gonna join up, as we've seen with our group, as we're following them through, the rest of the show. Being
Yeah.
alone, people can only be alone for so long.
Yeah.
It takes a certain type of person to actually be out there alone in the pretty much the wilderness,
Yeah.
a zombie-filled jungle.
Yeah. But it's like
So I think,
there was a group in Dead City. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler if people haven't watched it, but there was a group in Dead City that was introduced that were like cultish. They had their own kind of belief system they set up, within themselves because they were have been really isolated in this one spot,
mm,
and they don't really believe in medicine. Like one of the girls got hurt, and some of the people, Maggie's people, offered her a medicine kit, a first aid kit, and they're like, "No, we'll handle it our own way," which was let them bleed out and die. And I'm just like,
mm,
I think I put it in the comments on the channel. I want to be if the apocalypse happens, I want to be with a group that believes in medicine, or that don't eat people. I want a normal group.
yeah. I think if it was if it was me, the way my mind frame is set up now, like I would try to probably be one that was kind of prepared, not a doomsday prepper, but maybe a little prepared. You know, I do have some skills and resources, so you know, maybe I would have been defending myself at this point. I really wouldn't have had to go out too far.
Right, right. How long would you say, let's say something happens and you have to start doing that, surviving. How far do you think you could go before you did have to like
Oh, like
venture
join a
out?
group or
Yeah, fight for supplies, go look, try to figure something else out because you had a good thing, but it was only X amount of time.
well, I mean, if I'm gonna blend in a little real life, like I'm not super prepared, but I'm just kind of like a little prepared right now. Like I definitely could probably hold out for honestly maybe 3 weeks, feeding my me and my family,
Right.
before maybe but, I'm trying to get more ready for
Right.
anything, not just the
Right.
apocalypse, but what if something happens again, another COVID or something like that happens, so I don't know, like, I'm
Yeah.
starting to get more and more towards that, so I would say right now, maybe 3 weeks, a month, maybe 2 if we stretched it,
Right.
but
Yeah.
within that, I think I would've hopefully already had a garden going,
Right. Right.
so, you know
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I have a small freezer. My mom, she has like two freezers plus the freezer on her refrigerator. And I mean, I guess that's from old school back when we had a full family and they had to keep a lot of meat. And like dad would maybe kill a cow every now and then or something, kill a young bull or something, and we always had stuff, but she still got all of that. And it's always full of stuff. And I don't have that much food, especially in the freezer. Because, let's say the electricity goes out. The freezer is no good unless you have a generator or something. But then you need gasoline to run the generator. And so, that goes back to stuff like canning and freeze dried and, those types of foods and storage. And I don't have anything like that much. I have a few canned goods, but, they wouldn't last that long. So it's something to think about. It's something to think about. I have some land so I could start a garden, but that process takes a season, and what time of year is it when the apocalypse started? And, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of questions. Even somebody like myself, an old farm boy, I'm not real prepared if something really, really goes down.
Yeah, but, I mean, people are now though there's a lot more people that's in a better spot, some better than others as far as being prepared, but, you know, I think me, I would be a little bit I'm gonna be a little bit more prepared.
Yeah, so I don't think a lot of people's prepared, probably, but some more than others, like you say, for sure. But Carol was prepared. Carol, that's the whole thing about decisions that you make along the way. If Rick hadn't of cast her out, she would probably be in that train car too and not be able to save him. And just the state, like if this was any other time frame, if it was much earlier, she wouldn't have had the Rambo-ness, right? And if it was much later, she might have been that crying Carol that didn't want to kill anymore or something, So it was the perfect time for Carol to be Rambo and save him. It was awesome.
But see, I could definitely understand why people would follow that map to Terminus, and I understand why it was such a lucrative I get it, like, you got food. As as much as it's frowned upon to eat people, it's the apocalypse, and you gotta eat, and people seeking shelter is a constant way to keep fresh
Uh,
meat
it was
freezer.
yeah, for cannibals, it was genius, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, when Rick and them see that, or when we see that, I mean, just look at it. Like, there's all these people that are chopped up, like they're butchering them,
Yeah, man.
literally,
Just like cattle.
like
Just like cattle. I mean, yeah. Because that's what you do to cattle or even pigs. You line them up, or if you got more than one, and you cut their throat. You hit them in the head, you cut their throat, and let them bleed out. I mean,
yeah.
that's kind of the way it happens in the real world.
So I don't know how I would think about that or how I would feel when you sit there and see all those bodies and body parts that they're eating them and shit.
Yeah. It's, I guess the first group, if you start thinking about it, they offered Rick the plate and they, I don't know if anybody took a bite before Rick stopped them, but they didn't need any human, I guess. But the first people, if they did the same thing to the first people that they put in the train car and they fed them first, it's
Mhm.
it's it's a good probability that all the ones in the train car could have ate human flesh before they went in.
Yeah, that's crazy though. That just to think about people eating people, man, and the way that they did it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
the way that they did it. I mean, it. I got to give it to the show and Kirkman that actually it wasn't in the comic exactly like that, but still, to set up that story like that, because in the first days of the apocalypse, if it's something like this where you realize the world's gone and it's not coming back until we make something of it,
Hmm.
that's when the real crazy groups I think would start popping up. You know, the first several months in, the first year or so.
Yeah, yeah, like the wolf people.
Yeah. Yep. But Carol saved him, man. Carol saved him, and that hug. I think that was that's a really cool moment in the whole franchise of the show. Is the moment that Daryl realizes it was Carol, and that hug that they have right here. I think that's just
Mhm.
awesome as hell. As far as
Do you think it's kind
everything.
of? Do you think it's kind of weird that I mean that they haven't already Daryl and Carol haven't already like hooked up or something? Like you would think that
Uh, I mean, I see the. I don't know if you call it
because I'm not.
brother sister or whatever. I see that more actually. I was actually
But
surprised when Daryl hooked up with Leah in the main series. I thought he was. I mean, do you call it asexual or something where you're not really into people? I just figured he just wasn't
yeah,
into people because of his trauma or whatever it might have been.
yeah. I mean, I didn't know either. Like I thought I didn't know what to think of Daryl and like I didn't think that he was like no offense to anyone. I didn't think he was like gay or anything, but I just think he was an asshole, like a loner, one deep.
Yeah, yeah.
And, maybe him and Carol's connection, it is strictly just platonic or friendly or like, brother, sister. I don't know, I think they have just a bond that they're both traumatized people
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and they bond,
Yeah,
you
yeah, and
know?
if you want to look at it on a deeper level, I don't know if they intend it that way because it wasn't said directly, but Carol is an abused person in her marriage, and Daryl is an abused person by his father, and so they're
Right.
both, they both have this shared trauma type of trauma that I think they recognize in the beginning. Because if you
Yeah.
rewatch, say, season 2 at the farm, yeah, he's
Mhm.
trying everything to find Sophia, but at a certain point, he's yelling and cussing at Carol. Like he don't want to be her friend. He's trying to get her to go away. But
Yeah.
that's that whole time, that's when that bond is forming. Even when they're yelling at each other through season 2, because around season 3 on, they're like best friends and they got through the fire per se, you know.
Yeah. I think Carol is she adapted though, like because she was abused and stuff. So like, from what I've heard that, you learn to blend in.
Mhm.
And who's to think that Carol, is gonna kill him or do anything to him because she's just a sweet old lady who bakes cookies?
Right, right. Yeah, and she
So
said as far as their trauma goes, the reason she had in the show anyway, the story goes, the reason she's has short hair is because when she grew it out, it was easier for Ed to grab her as she was trying to get
mhm,
away from him, so she kept it short. And through, when she got with Ezekiel, she let it grow out again. And that was actually something that I think it was Henry or one of the kids said, like told Daryl maybe was talking like
mhm,
they put that in the dialogue of the show.
yeah.
So all of that plays in, but she was Rambo during Terminus. Boy, she had that mud on her face. She put the guts on, and she had the fireworks and the rifle, and she just knew what to do. And so that's pretty awesome, man. That's pretty awesome. And Daryl recognized it in the end. Rick recognized it. And she also said, "Hey, I've also got Judith," you know? And that was
But
huge. That was a huge thing that she also saved Judith. So Rick at this point, Rick owes Carol. I mean, they all owe Carol because they would have all been barbecue without her. But Rick doubly or triply, triple whatever the word is, owes her. You know, if you throw in Judith and the other things, you know. So Carol, I mean, this was such a huge thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, she, like you said, she saved Judith, she saved them, she saved the day. And I mean, I think that's, when everybody was like, yeah, Carol's a badass.
Yeah,
And
she come a long way from the housewife.
and that's what I think the banishment part, whenever Rick kicked her out, and she went off and had to survive on her own, I think it I think it really helped her out.
It definitely at least set the stage so she could rescue him. That's you know, just those little things you start looking back, and it's crazy to even think about. Even when Morgan, he's like, I don't want to kill people, and Rick's like, you gotta kill people sometimes, and he's like, well, you didn't kill Carol, or you didn't, you know, what you did ended up in this result. And so sometimes it's hard to argue one way or the other, like it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, you know, kind of thing, or something. And
Well, look at the decision she just had to make before that.
yeah, and that may be something we talk about in a separate video, but the look at the flowers thing, I mean, that's what Carol's just been through as far as her, you know, what happened to her right before this. She had to kill a little
And
girl.
and that's what I'm saying. Like that's a decision that no one would ever want to make.
Ever.
You can't let her go because she'll either die or something will happen to her.
Yeah.
And then you can't keep her because you can't trust her around. So
Yeah.
what do you do?
I mean, that's really the only thing. It's the saddest thing in the world, but really is the only answer, really, in that situation, I think.
The most, yeah, the most humane, which we're armchair quarterback in here, but I mean,
But see,
it
you
was
know,
most humane.
yeah, how we're talking about her and what led up to that and what she's been through, and Rick, all the different things he been through, just bam, 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 bam. I mean, those are great type of things to think about when we're talking about the WZMB radio fan fiction thing that we are talking about before we started the recording. You know, you think about people like Carol or people like Rick or people like this group, and not just oh, we ran out of food, or this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened. You know, we could really stack it up just like the show does. But Terminus, what you thought it? You agree, or you were saying that you thought it was a pretty good story arc as we went along the Walking Dead show?
Yeah, the Terminus story arc though was really it was really written really well. It blended in, it took the time it needed, it did what it needed to do, and it wasn't too long or too short, not enough detail or too much detail, as it has happened all across the universe, you know,
Yeah.
as we've seen in the other TV series. So this is one of the really well-written story arcs, and it developed the characters in a way that prepared them for what they're gonna have to do. Because Rick, he had to bite that man in the throat. Carol had to blow them people up, like, so they had to do these things, and that prepared them for what they became later on down the line.
Yeah, yeah, and that's you know, it it helps when you know that the other party were cannibals. It's like, yeah, kill them some bitches. Or it helps if you know the other party thinks raping women is a okay thing or something like that. So if the other side you think is more villainous than you are, you know, if you were in an apocalypse. But a lot of
Mhm.
times it just may be I'm hungry and you're hungry and there's some food over there, and the only way that it's going to happen is one of us gets it. The other one is going to fall. And it's
Well, they
just,
say
you know, it could be where it's good people against good people, but for just a bad situation reason, you know.
well, I've heard many different things like 6 months, a year of, chaos or unrest, whatever the apocalypse, 6 months to a year, you get to this part. I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe y'all can correct me in the comments or whatever, let me know. But 6 months to a year, all hell will have already broken loose.
Yeah. And I
So
guess
never get
yeah, I guess it depends on what exactly it was, like a full scale global thing or just this country or that country or whatever, like a meteorite maybe or an asteroid, whatever hit over there somewhere, whatever it may be. But if it's something global, I would say 6 months or less, even, if it's something total.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, they already know it's worldwide. That France went dark, however many time ago. So it's worldwide.
Because the thing that would make something worse is that, I mean, I'm not trying to say I hope a bunch of people die if something bad happens, but,
Mhm.
let's look at The Walking Dead for an example. What if something happened where there's still a, a billion more people still alive, but no resources? Let's say the whole world fell apart for whatever reason. There'd be a lot of a lot more starving people even and stuff like that. Like you say, you're ready for this amount of time, and I can maybe plant a garden or something. There's millions and millions of people that are not in that situation at all. They don't have anything in the pantry, and they live in an apartment. They can't, you
Yeah.
know, they can't grow a garden maybe or something like that. So they're almost lucky that it's a type of an apocalypse where most of the population died. I guess it's bad to look at it that way.
Well, yeah, a lot of people who are still alive at this time are there. Half of the people are dead or zombies. So you got a lot of people who died early, which in any situation like where there's really no law and order, I mean, I think a good amount of people will be dead in 6 months.
Crazy,
So
crazy to
if
think
you
about.
if you make it a year, now you're an OG.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You got some seasoning under your belt.
Yeah. So to be, going through all this stuff that Rick, Carol, Daryl, they've all been through at this point, to see them come out again, for me, that was like, whoa, I didn't see none of that coming.
Yeah, and this is probably the last big thing before, of course, they go to Alexandria, and that's when a lot of people kind of, well, they're not on the road anymore. It's not as good anymore, and then Negan happened, and they kind of drug that out a little bit too long for TV anyway, and that a few more people fell away, especially when they killed Glenn, and then things just started going downhill. I think this was definitely the peak. The ratings say that and everything, but Carol, Terminus saving the group, the Cannibals showing us what the Cannibals did, their backstory a little bit and stuff. It's one of my favorite arcs in the whole thing. So it's cool. It's cool to talk to you about it and get your views on it. You would
Yeah.
say you wouldn't eat people though, if you could help it.
No, definitely wouldn't eat people. Not this early anyway, because this is way too early. And I
Yeah.
mean, I think they're doing it as a defensive thing too.
Right.
Keeping
Right.
like bringing more people, ambush, killing them. The less people, the less you have to worry about people coming and doing what the other people did to you.
Right. Yep.
So it was definitely for me. I think this arc was well written. You know, I think that maybe this was one of them that they could have maybe stretched it a little longer, but at the same time, this was really where it catapulted the group and the characters, and like I said earlier, prepared them for what they become, later down the line.
Yep. For sure. For sure. And it's just so much about it that people quote and know as far as the audience was so big, so you could almost walk up to anybody and say Terminus and they know what you're talking about a little bit on The Walking Dead. So it was a big arc. It's pretty cool to flesh it out again, to revisit the arc of Terminus. And You guys let us know what you think down in the comments about it all, whether it be the cannibalism side. Would you eat people? How far would you go, starving or whatever it may be before you would? And, the whole what you think about Carol rescuing everybody and everything that led up to it. Just any old thing. Let us know down in the comments below. And, we'll join you there. This is James and Will. Till next
All right,
time.
y'all. Have a good one. See you later.
Bye.